Chris.
Hey,
good to see you. How are
morning.
you today?
Welcome to Ellis Don. Good to
Thanks
see
for
you
having
again.
us.
Nice to see you again.
Chris, 1970s was when we had our peak in building. 2023 was the worst year on the record for 23 years. This year looks like it's going to be even worse. Pre-con sales have plummeted. There's a lot of stuff happening with clients just being dissatisfied. What's your take on the market right now?
It's a really difficult time out there. We haven't seen inflation was running rampant. There was aggressive monetary policy in place to try to tamp down that inflation, and it ended up causing some serious distress in the housing market. But when you take a step back, who knows what's going to happen in the future? But the only information we have at our fingertips is the information we have from the past. And if you look at what happened in the 90s, aggressive monetary policy pushed down housing demand for a short period of time. And once inflation was back under control and that monetary policy was pulled back, housing demand and housing prices took off. And in the 90s and in 2008, which again were the worst housing crises we've dealt with in the last 40 years, for every 3 people entering the working age population, Canada was delivering 1 home. At Q1 2024, that number was 5. 5 people were entering the working age population for every 1 home. So it's hard to imagine a future where housing prices drop, just looking at how much demand there will be for a country like Canada. And I think you're starting to see that now in the resilience of the housing market.
So with that, we know that it's the worst year in 24 years and it's up from here. What does that look like? How does that enable a builder or a consumer? What are the things that people should be looking out for in the future now?
There's no doubt a lot of people are struggling right now. Inflation is causing the average consumer to struggle, it's causing developers to struggle, it's causing businesses to struggle. And we're at that point where before this clampdown in monetary policy, we were already in an enormous housing deficit. And now you talk about projects getting canceled, you talk about projects being delayed, inventory being delayed. That housing shortage is only going to be exacerbated. And being able to get into a market at this time where it could be the rock bottom is a great advantage to some buyers who are able to capitalize on that now. They need to take a more diligent look at what they're buying, who's building it, what they've built in the past, and that's why quality is so important when you're looking at buying a pre-construction condo. It's very easy to make a rendering look great, but you don't want the delivery of one of the biggest purchases in your life to feel like Amazon knockoff, where the pictures are great and when it gets to your door and it's a piece of trash.
That's a really good point you make, Chris. Strategic partnerships are so much more important in the landscape right now. Tell us how Ellis Don came to being one of the biggest builders in the landscape of Canada.
But Ellis Don was founded in 1951 on April Fool's Day, believe it or not, and has since grown really into Canada's biggest builder developer. Really starting to hit their stride in the 1980s. And I think some of what your clients and partners would recognize, Metro Toronto Convention Centre, the Sky Dome, those were all the big projects that were happening at that time. So I think the next really pivotal part in Ellis Don's history was in around 2003, when Canada and the Ontario government specifically came out with a new model called a public-private partnership. And I'll get into that in a minute, but in order to address that, we've embraced a strategy that's called cradle to grave. And really what that means is it's an entirely new way to look at building a building. And think about it this way, for example, a general contractor, you get a drawing, you build the building. It's generally how it works. Mm-hmm. Under this cradle to grave mantra, Ellis Don is now a construction services company. And that may seem like a small nuance, but it's incredibly important. So the people in this building, we're at our head offices here in Mississauga, they do everything across the board. Design, construction, finance, operation, maintain, you name it, it's done out of this building here. So it's an entirely different view of how to look at construction.
When you're paying so much, a lot of consumers look at dollar per square foot, they look at a rendering, and then they start thinking about the end product. Quality is so important because when you're going from a sheet of paper to an actual hard asset, it's crazy what we end up with. So in terms of Ellis Don's philosophy in delivering quality products, tell us more. How does it look like for you guys at that level? What are the things that you consider? What are the concerns and the care that you take in making the decisions you make?
everything with Ellis Don, you're going to hear cradle to grave over and over and over again. And what that means is taking responsibility for every step of the way across the completion of a building, whether it's a condo, a hydroelectric dam, or a roadway. That's just how things are done here. And really what that means is having a group whose sole focus is that particular thing. Whether it's digging a hole or coming up with the most innovative, sustainable practice for construction or quality, we have an entire group that's only focus is that particular discipline. So for us, we do have a quality assurance group, and their only job is making sure that what Ellis Don delivers is some of the best product out there.
So Chris, Ellis Don has an impressive portfolio of the different types and styles of properties that you build, depending on the demographic you're serving, depending on the type of people that are looking for a specific product. Tell us a little bit about how you look to acquire that land, what the thought process is before you actually get to that stage, and the different types and styles of projects that Ellis Don are involved in.
As Ellis Don as a company, the assets that we build range from hydroelectric dams to roads to hospitals to courthouses. It's a very wide group of different assets, but I would assume we're talking about Ellis Don Developments being the real estate arm. So what we try to focus on, or what we do focus on, is residential in the GTA. In the last 5 to 10 years, as you know very well, that's been focused on condominium. I think the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see a lot more of a balanced approach from the development sector delivering purpose-built rental and condos. And when it comes down to it for us, every project is going to be different, and I'm not trying to give you a fluffy answer. Whether it's a more luxury focused project in Northern Toronto, or maybe something on the more affordable side, kind of mostly anywhere else in Toronto, trying to get more housing into the market. For us, our primary focus is trying to deliver as much value to the purchaser as possible. And for us, our Arcadia project is a great example of that. Every purchaser in that project is going to have access to 4 times the amenities than a traditional condo building. So for what that means is it's going to be 60,000 square feet of an amenity club that's going to be there. So look at it this way. If you are now a buyer and you're living in your own unit, you're now right next to transit. You don't need a car. You've got a massive gym there, so you don't need a gym membership.
Chris, a lot of people throw around the word sustainability, and it means different things to different people. What is sustainability to Ellis Don?
There's no avoiding the numbers. The construction industry is one of the bigger polluters when it comes to carbon emissions. Ellis Don takes that very, very seriously, all the way up from the senior executives, all the way to our specific sustainability group. And I'll give you a couple examples of both. So one, building code. Building code is updated every decade or so, and you can think about it, it takes a long time to do that. So right now we're working on updating it with the feds. And how it generally works is it's published at the federal level, but the building code then sits with the province. So whatever the feds come out with, it's generally trickled down to the provincial level. So we're working on that today. And the next published code is going to come out in 2030. So what Ellis Don's been trying to work with the feds on influencing is make sure the building code is performance-based. Don't tell us what to build. Don't tell us how to build it. Tell the industry how the building needs to perform. Let the industry figure out a way to deliver the most sustainable buildings out there. So again, that's building code. That's one of the big pieces that we're focused on. And on a more micro level, mass timber is a huge piece that everybody's talking about now, right? Mass timber has all sorts of limitations on it. And we have a specialist group here that is focusing on making what is effectively a wood panel. And the sounds simple, but bear with me. The biggest challenge with mass timber construction is that there's only so much support that can be attained from a single wood beam. So you think about it, that creates a lot less open space. It creates a lot of challenges in building a building. So what our team has done is they've partnered with an architectural firm called Dialogue, and they're working through and they're going to patent this new design that allows for a wider and longer mass timber construction method.
Chris, you guys have more software developers than most software development companies have, from what you're telling me.
Right.
Innovation is obviously very important to Ellis Don. Tell us about how innovation permeates what you guys do, and what are you guys doing with the innovation that's really cool that bleeds into real estate side of things?
Don't underestimate software developers. For one concept, just to illustrate it, a lot of those developers are working on a concept called digital twinning. And really what that means for the non-engineers like me is it's creating an entire perfect copy of the building in the metaverse or whatever the software engineers are calling it these days. So an entire building is being built digitally before a shovel goes into the ground. So you can imagine the savings, the impact that that has on a building. And we have, EllisDon has started a whole separate group called EllisDon Community Builders, whose sole focus is to look at housing as infrastructure and help governments deliver housing, this really desperately needed affordable housing, through already existing infrastructure procurement methods. So we think that'll provide a level of comfort and hopefully we'll be able to get the ball rolling as we move forward here.
Chris, so obviously it takes years and years and years to develop customer satisfaction. A company like EllisDon doesn't get to where it is if it wasn't really good at what it does. Tell us more about customer satisfaction. What's the thought process? What are you guys looking at to ensure that you keep delivering products and services at the highest level?
Well, one of the biggest pieces for this, I mean, we're all creatures of habit. We want to know what's going on, right? So one of EllisDon's key values is transparency. And particularly if you're buying a condo, you're putting your hard-earned dollars into a deposit and you're sitting there and hoping and trusting that that unit will be delivered on time and on budget to the quality that you've expected. So having a complete and open, transparent communication process with our purchasers so that they're up to date on what's happening, how things are going, is a critical component to our customer service policy, as well as having an assigned delegate within the company so that when you have an issue, when you have a question, you have somebody to call who's there available to you to be able to give you the information you need and answer the questions that you have.
Awards and accolades mean a lot and they have high significance in all industries, not just the real estate builder. Tell us some of the significant accolades you guys have received.
Well, so like again, EllisDon is such a big company and there's so much happening. We just won the Don Smith Commercial Building Award, and Don Smith is the founder of EllisDon, so that's actually an award in London named after our founder. We were also named On-Site Top Contractors, second best contractor by that magazine. We also won the BCCA Community Champion Award, which is out in Vancouver. If you go to our website, there's a very long list of maybe company-specific as well as project-specific awards that...
Chris, what would you tell a potential consumer looking to buy an EllisDon project or an EllisDon build? What is it that you would like for them to look out for?
So I'm sure you tell your buyers this all the time. Do your due diligence. Look into the builder. Look at what they've built. Look at what previous purchasers, what their experience has been. And at least for EllisDon, I would hope that they'd fairly easily be able to find a building that's been built by EllisDon in their neighborhood or in a major area around them. Go walk one. If you're in Toronto, go look at the AGO. Go look at some of these really staple buildings that EllisDon has built and think, is this the builder that I would trust to build my condo unit? And I think with today's market, there's a lot of options out there, and knowing that what you're going to be receiving for your deposit, for your money, is going to be of quality, and that really is paramount. So, if you can, go find someone who's lived in an EllisDon built building. Ask them. Like that, I think would be the best source of information for anybody looking to build a builder.
For everybody watching out there, what can we expect? What's next? Give us a little bit of information on what we can look forward to.
Well, look, EllisDon has always been a company where you are going to see us in the biggest, most complicated projects across the country. So in Mississauga, that's going to be hospitals. In Toronto, you're going to still see the Portland's realignment come to an end. You're going to be seeing EllisDon, continue to see EllisDon across the country. Hopefully, with the topic of this has been the challenges we are seeing in the housing market. EllisDon has always been a group that runs toward challenges, so you're going to see us more in the residential space as well as affordable housing. So keep an eye out for us. I think you're going to be seeing a lot of us. Thanks for coming in.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks for having us.